How many 5-year-olds do you think you could take in a fight? That's the question that we strive to answer on America's most Freudian podcast, The Pod People. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I got too much shit on me.
How many 5-year-olds do you think you could take in a fight?
At least 6.
Okay. I'm Ben Sheets, Child of Rage.
How many 5-year-olds do you think you could take in a fight?
I could probably take about 8.
Do you think you could take 8? Oh.
Yeah.
8's a lot.
I can definitely take more 5-year-olds than you can.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see.
He probably can. If I'm being honest,
I mean...
Yeah. He's a powerful man. He's a big guy. Hi, I'm Cleveland Mosier, a.k.a. Honey Brood Boo, and
how many 5-year-olds do you think you could take in a fight?
About the same. About, 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Past that, it's just too much to track.
Yeah, they start getting underfoot, and you lose the advantage if you get on the ground.
Yeah,
it's all about crowd control.
Yeah,
honestly,
they have a lower center of gravity.
That's true, and 5-year they don't have much strength, but their advantages in their ground game. Mm-hmm. Although now that I say that, I think if I put a 5-year-old in a Kimura clutch, I don't think there's much he's going to be able to do about that.
One, but what about
their
the other
arms
4?
Like twigs?
Yeah.
That's
when it comes to orders of probability, you start slipping past 5. That's where it gets too hard to track everything.
Too many variables.
The thing about fighting 5-year-olds though is you hit them a couple times, they start crying, and then they're done. They're not gonna fight you when they're
5-year-olds go down very easily.
Yeah, it's for sure. Yeah, unless they're weird rage 5-year-olds, but we'll get into that. But I think really the main tactic for taking them on, of course, is picking up one and using it as a weapon.
As always. When
swing around
in any scenario where you're fighting a multitude of smaller creatures, that's always the strat.
Pick up one.
Is to use one of them as a weapon. Yeah, grab that 5-year-old by his ankles and start slinging around in a tornado.
Do the fucking what's the wrestler's name? Cesaro.
Oh, Cesaro.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
His whole move is swinging people.
Oh, yeah,
around.
slinging people around. What's his name now that he's in AEW? It's something. I think he uses his real name. He's like Claudio now.
Yeah, which is
the Iron Claudio.
The Iron Claudio.
Also a funny wrestler name.
What are we doing here? We're here to talk about a movie that Cleveland chose for us,
and we're really going to be brooding about it.
Yes, indeed. We're here to brood over David Cronenberg's The Brood from 1979. Another Cronen first for you, Cleve.
Hell yeah, baby! I had to. I'm trying to get through all of these. I'm trying to approach each of my picks. I feel like if I die, there'll be a couple of films I will have lamented not seeing. Not that I would know I'd be dead. I wouldn't really matter anymore. But spiritually, I think it's important to fulfill that.
You're filling in gaps.
Yeah, I'm not picking garbage. I'm not picking,
not that you're aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, I'm trying to pick films I haven't seen before that I feel like I should, to culture myself, to educate myself, and to further crawl out from under this rock I've been crawling out through over the years of this podcast. So we did The Brood. Because Cronenberg. You've got a
decent amount of Cronenberg under your belt now.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, you're catching up. I don't think I've seen that many more than you have at this point.
No.
At least in terms of his straight horror stuff. I think the only ones we haven't covered on the show are Scanners, Shivers, and
Rabid.
I haven't seen Rabid. Scanners, Shivers, and The Dead Zone are the only horror ones.
I was about to ask if Crash would count.
Crash, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Crash. Yeah. Forgot about Crash.
I have seen all of his movies, actually.
Wow.
Including Crash. Yes.
I mean, Crash whips ass, but...
Yeah, great director,
How did you like The Brood, Cleveland?
I loved it. It was exactly what I was really hoping for. We had this conversation over, Videodrome. How, I don't know, I went into it with a certain expectation, and I wasn't sure, how it fulfilled it. Given time to process it, coming less hot off of Videodrome, I think Videodrome is exactly what it should be, and I really love it. But with The Brood, I'm coming off of it thinking, it's a Cronenberg movie called The Brood. It had everything in it I wanted. Everything I would expect it to have, and I was quite pleased. I'm revolted, I'm reeling, I'm pondering, and I think I'm gonna keep thinking about this movie for a good while. I think, like before I fall asleep tonight, I'm probably just gonna like kind of just be, what's the term, mulling over it.
Brooding, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your Cronenberg journey has been interesting. Crimes of the Future was your first or second?
No. I saw The Fly years ago.
Okay, so you're second after The Fly.
Yeah. Well, no, I saw what's the one with Viggo that's not a horror film.
History of Violence.
History of Violence.
Okay.
Yeah, so History of Violence as well. Banger. God, what a great movie.
Yeah. Honestly, maybe my favorite. That and Eastern Promises. Much different movies than the rest of his oeuvre, but...
That's the thing, yeah, it seems like, there's still a lot of Cronenbergs that I need to watch, I feel.
This is one of his earliest ones chronologically that we've covered, because this is before The Fly, before Videodrome, before Dead Ringers, before all of that. And I feel like you can sort of like see a lot of the places where his career goes after this one.
Yeah.
I love watching Cronenberg stuff because I feel like there's like always a clear progression throughout his career and the kinds of themes that he is exploring and re-exploring. And I think his earlier stuff, Scanners included, tends to be a little bit more straightforward in terms of the plot. Like, this is way more straightforward than something like Videodrome.
Sure, yeah. Still very clinical and,
yes.
Detached and kind of brooding and slow.
Yes.
I had to look something up at the end of this movie because spiritually I felt it, and I was so glad to have it confirmed when I looked it up. At the time that Cronenberg was making this, he was going through a messy divorce.
You don't say.
Yeah. Spiritually, I felt it through the whole movie.
You don't fucking say.
But
yeah, it's just like how when you watch Eraserhead, you can really feel that David Lynch is working out a lot of his issues with like new fatherhood, being a very young man, having just had his first child.
Yeah.
And this movie, you can really tell that Cronenberg was dealing with some shit, some baggage with his bitch wife.
Am I right, guys?
Am I right? Am I right, fellas? Yeah. So the movie kind of broadly is about a
Broodly.
A broodly. It is Canadian.
yeah, hey.
a broodly.
We're both there.
Yeah, so we've got a couple that is obviously going through some kind of rough patch, and the wife is undergoing a sort of experimental psychotherapy at this special institute way out in the wilderness, overseen by Dr. Ragland, played by the legendary Oliver Reed, who's very good in this. Who practices the science of psychoplasmics.
It's that classic Cronenberg, like, vaguely medical, scientific fiction.
Yes.
Which is really interesting.
There's an evil organization.
Classic Cronenberg theme of a cult of personality centered around a weird pseudoscience.
Yeah. What y'all think about, like, the opening scene where they introduce, like, his practice of psychoplasmics, where it's almost shot like a theater performance?
I thought it was at first. I thought it was vile in all the right ways. It really eked me, gave me the yeeky beakies, the beebies. All the bits where like he starts like playing the role of his father, and like the way that they play with gender in that scene is very, very uncomfortable. And it just this grown man calling like another grown man daddy, and with him almost like in this trance state of like this transitory somnambolic almost state, dreamlike, almost childlike, like saying that to his dad is freaky and gross. And of course it's revealed that like this character, as he sort of keeps changing his roles to reflect the dialogue he's trying to break through to this patient, we learn that's the doctor himself.
Yeah, it's like a confrontation therapy kind of thing where the doctor plays the role of somebody in the patient's life who is a source of some trauma or some kind of hang-up, and they do it while sitting facing each other wearing karate gis.
Because it's a spiritual battle.
Yeah, right.
Or a mental one, a metaphysical.
Yeah, he's basically just negging him until the patient achieves some sort of emotional release. Well, and in this case, like, forces him, and this is where you kind of get the sense that there's, something about, like, what's different about psychoplasmics is that, like, through the therapy, like, by the end, the patient has, like, these, like, open wounds, these sores that, like, appear on his body and his face, so that, like, the doctor is sort of, like, somehow forcing him to physically manifest his trauma on his own skin, something like that. It's a very strange and sort of absurd and uncomfortable way to set the tone for the movie. Because, like y'all mentioned, it's like they treat it like a stage play because it's like just these two men sitting in this like dark void, lit from above, going through this for several minutes, and then we cut and see that it's in like an auditorium, and
he's a large audience, which is interesting because otherwise in the movie, like, his practice is very isolationist. So, like, it's a very intentional choice to start it in such a distinctly different way. Yeah,
he works alone with the wife, with Nola, because she's special, as we learn. But yeah, it seems like for the other patients, part of it is sort of like a group therapy sort of thing, or doing it in front of others to show off his method or whatever. And our protagonist, Frank, played by Art Hindle, who I always think looks like Big Ed from Twin Peaks.
He's got a very classic Americana
look,
particularly his haircut.
We've talked about him before on the podcast years and years and years ago. He's in Black Christmas, another Canadian production. Yeah. He's one of the boyfriends in that one. But yeah, so, we sort of see Frank coming in and sitting down and catching the end of this violent negging session, where the doctor is talking to his patients like, "You're weak. You should have been a girl because women are weaker. What if I start calling you Michelle instead of Mike?"
This is where, from the jump, it feels like there's some divorce guy energy and disdain for couples therapy and therapists in general. He's kind of a pop psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. He has a book that he's written that's fairly popular, it seems, and very much a cult of personality, which is why the performance aspect of the opening kind of makes so much sense in like immediately kind of explaining who this character is to us.
And you see shades of future characters from his other movies in this, like Brian Oblivion and Jennifer Jason Leigh's character in Existenz, Allegra. I can't remember the character's last name. Death to Allegra Geller. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Where there's just these weird kind of brilliant figures within their field that have all of these people surrounding them and fawning on them and stuff like that. But yeah, so we see that that Frank has come to pick up his daughter because his daughter is allowed to stay there with the mother on weekends. They're having some sort of custody thing while she undergoes her psychoplasmic therapy. And when he picks up his daughter, he sees that when he gets her home, rather, he sees that she has, like, bruises and scratches and bite marks on her back, and, of course, assumes that his wife is abusing the daughter when she goes up to this retreat for the weekends. So that's sort of kickstarts the movement of the film as he's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on up here at this mysterious psychoplasmic retreat facility, and try to find a way to keep his daughter from getting wrapped up in whatever's going on there.
One of the things I love about the setting, it's like super like 70s mid-century modern, like these huge glass windows, kind of unconventional, like,
and it's out
architectural style.
And it's out in the woods, and it's winter, so you've got these like beautiful snowy woodland landscapes with this very idyllic but modern like medical therapy sort of retreat.
Yeah, all the scenes that are
the ideal kind of place to go and fix your brain, right? In the isolation of nature.
Well, I really like all the scenes that are in Raglan's sort of lodge office space. Yeah. Because there's these huge glass windows, like you were saying, outside of it. Sort of an A-frame sloped roof, very cozy and warm on the inside. A lot of like cherry and like warm leathers, and
they do the really
feels
classic,
like a it feels like you're incubated inside of it from the cold out there.
A womb, if you will.
It's womb-like. And also, like, the color is really pretty because, again, like, everything in the foreground inside is very, like, warm and inviting. And then, like, in the background, it's all very cool and blue and cold. And I really like the use of, like, warm to cool color in this film.
They do this really classic 70s thing of having carpeting, like, bright orange, kind of, earthy orange carpet with a big rug over top of it.
Oh yeah,
like
all the wood paneling.
Mm-hmm. And it carries on throughout the other locations as well. Like the family's home, the grandparents' home in particular is so 70s. Like
the grandma's
the green floral.
The kitchen with the bamboo wallpaper in the kitchen gets me every time.
It's so distinctly 70s, and then even the attic space and the rest. Like it's always that kind of dusty wallpaper. It's just a little bit too busy. Real old people house shit.
Yeah. So funny to think that was just like the norm back then. When you compare it to, 50 years later where everything now is just like hyper minimal.
It was sort of an awkward growing pain to minimalism because like 70s wallpaper is so distinct and weird, and it just hits this like kind of wretched sweet spot to me where like it's not as floral and appealing as like William Morris wallpaper, from like previous eras. It's a little bit more simple, but like it hits that like 50-50 negative space to busy space, white noise mid-ground that it kind of vibrates against everything else it's on, and it's awful. I tend to like suede and leather and plushy, fuzzy carpet 70s decor a lot, and frankly, like, we should never have stopped doing sunken living rooms. Like, we fucked up there, man. Yeah, bring back sunken living rooms. What are we doing?
The conversation pit.
Why did we abandon that? It's so great. It's so... Talking about womb-like, right? Like, how inviting is a sunken living space, man? Fucked up. Like, I think it's probably, like, one of the greatest, like, architectural failures of the modern age is that we abandoned
Wow, okay. Cleveland making big sweeping statements.
Here we go.
Cleveland's a return to tradition, guys.
That's right.
Except for the 70s.
Nostalgia and demanding a return to the past is definitely not a short road to authoritarianism, folks. Don't
Never.
Listen. Yeah, no.
No Hitler particles there.
Nope. Well, speaking of weird particles.
Where you going with this, bud?
Actually, you know what? Let's... A footnote on weird particles. That's a little too close to the end. We're not. I don't think we're.
Yeah. Okay. So moving forward with the plot. Yeah. So what becomes Frank's issue here is he tries to go to talk to Dr. Raglan first and is like, my dumb bitch wife is obviously like beating our 5-year-old daughter. Like, she didn't get those marks from me. She had them when I picked her up. It's like, she's not coming back up here. And Dr. Raglan's like, oh well, your wife's at like a very crucial moment in her treatment right now, and I don't think taking her daughter away from her would be wise because it could cause her to snap. And if you try, then you don't have any legal right to deny visitation, so we'll make sure that we take legal action if you don't keep bringing your daughter up here. And, he goes to his lawyer, and his lawyer's like, yeah, I mean, you don't have any legal right here. And so Frank is like, well, what if I can put together a case? What if I can prove that this new weird psychoplasmics fad is actually harmful? Like, it's actually doing damage to people. Like, if I can damage his reputation, then might I have something? The lawyer's like, yeah, I guess, maybe.
His biggest warning is a truth, and that is that the law favors
the mother.
The mother.
Yes. Now, when Cronenberg was going through this divorce, did he have children already? Was there?
He had one. I
Okay.
believe.
Was Brandon
Brandon?
born yet?
No,
I think
it was
Brandon's
Caitlin.
later. Okay.
She is a photographer.
Yeah. So I get you can really feel like if there are children involved in this divorce, like you could really feel you can really feel Cronenberg's bitterness.
If I remember correctly, I was looking into this right after the movie ended, but I believe she was born, I want to say in like 72, which would make her about the same age
5,
as
6, 7 years
Candy
old. Yeah.
in this movie, which, man, there's some things to unpack there.
Yes.
Caitlin Cronenberg is probably most known for taking the photograph that was on the cover of Drake's album Views.
No shit, where he's sitting up on top of the...
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I don't think I
crazy.
didn't realize that.
I was wrong. She was born 5 years after this movie.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
For some reason, I was thinking she was older.
How many Cronin babies are there?
There's 3, apparently.
Were there any when this movie was made?
Brandon was born a year after this. I don't know about his other kid. One daughter, Cassandra Cronenberg. It doesn't say her age, though, on here, so
Okay.
who knows?
So, unknown, inconclusive. There may or may not have been a Cronin baby in existence during this time.
Well, there most likely was during the first marriage, because that's what it says, but who knows how old she was at the time.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, then it still makes sense that Cronenberg is having these custody anxieties. I think too, something that always strikes me about this movie is, to fall back on the pun yet again, this is one of his most, like, brooding films, I think.
No, that's true, though.
Atmospherically, it's very heavy. I don't think it's necessarily like his scariest or his most grotesque film, but it's one of the ones with just like the worst vibes to me. I've always found. I don't know if y'all feel the
and
same.
I think
Slow, it's
honestly,
ponderous.
part of that is divorce energy.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Like you can just feel it. You can feel the resentment. You can feel the anger.
I have a fun tidbit. While I was looking at the third Cronenberg, I came upon this snippet in the Wikipedia article. In the book Cronenberg on Cronenberg, he revealed that The Brood was inspired by events that occurred during the unraveling of his first marriage, which caused both Cronenberg and his daughter Cassandra a great deal of turmoil. The character Nola Carveth, mother of The Brood, is based on Cassandra's mother. Cronenberg
You don't say.
Cronenberg said that he found the shooting of the climactic scene, spoiler, in which Nola was strangled by her husband to be, quote-unquote, very satisfying.
God damn it.
Oh, man.
So, messy divorce.
Yeah, no shit. Well, yeah, that sort of does spoil the ending of the film a little bit, but we'll get there.
A little bit. There's plenty more. So
Yeah, there's plenty more.
I gotta say, while we're talking about it, the themes here and messy divorce, like handling the like this, like a small child sort of being caught up in the middle of it and having to just witness the horrors. Talk about sister films, Possession. Like this movie and Possession, I think have a great deal in common.
Expand on that.
So much of Possession is about like creating another you, a doppelganger of yourself, and like how that affects your family around you. I mean, most of Possession is a couple screaming at each other, and trying to deal with separation and loss there. There's so many great scenes of Sam Neill in his apartment coping with her not being there anymore. And I think that's very well reflected in this. And I think there's more there, but also it does spoil the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, doppelgangers are a big factor in both films as well, and having your trauma and that darkness replicated in you, or not replicated in you. It's just kind of cool. I think that's sort of the big difference between Possession and The Brood is about replicating that darkness, like almost out of you, whereas Possession is sort of like you are imperfect, and by replicating yourself, you're creating a more perfect you. But they're both, it's the same idea. It's pontificating on sort of the same thing, and it uses a couple with a young child is the mirror for that, like as the allegory, and their turmoil and their separation. The anxiety of replacing the mother is explored in both films.
I think the anxieties come from slightly different places, though. I think the like child is way more secondary in Possession than it is here. Children and motherhood is kind of like the central angst of this film, whereas it's definitely, I don't disagree that it's part of Possession, but I think the angst of that film is more rooted in like separation and like loss of control of yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's what I find really interesting about Possession is like through selfishness the child gets ignored, and the movie like actively ignores the child, and we see the effect of that by the end of the movie with don't open, and he runs upstairs and drowns himself. And like it just to spoil part of Possession, but that neglect damages the kid. Yeah. And here it's not neglect, it's the rest, but it's still exploring that same idea of the damage and the fallout from these events.
Yeah, they're certainly not entirely dissimilar. I won't argue with you.
Like I don't think they're identical like a doppelganger, but I think they're sister films.
Yeah, they would make for an interesting double feature, I think.
A doppelganger feature.
I don't know which one I would play first.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't the first time that Cronenberg has explored this idea of replicated self. Very recently on the podcast, we did Dead Ringers, which explores very many of those same themes.
But you were absolutely right in that like the film has a very strong like brooding kind of bleak vibe to
permeating
it.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
I think what's so interesting is it's juxtaposed by kill sequences that get a little campy.
Yeah, they do. Kind of absurd, but in an unsettling way.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think there's, to sort of linger on the atmosphere of the film a little bit. Like, there's not what I would describe as a single comfortable frame in this movie. Like, there's never any sort of like feel good scenes or any kind of tenderness or any sort of like, it's just like everybody's always on edge from the get-go. Even when he takes Candy to her grandmother's house, to Nola's mother's house, to watch her while he has to go to work. And while he's there, like, not only is the grandmother drinking heavily the whole time, but she's also talking about childhood baggage and how she doesn't have a good relationship with Nola and all of that kind of resentment. She says something fucking insane, like, 30 seconds after you're born, you have your first memory, and 60 seconds later, you start lying to yourself about it. It's just like, Jesus It's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
And like the husband's response to it is
He's like,
it's
yeah,
it's
all
like-
right, I gotta go to work now.
like he might as well turn to the camera and been like, "Women, am I right?"
It's like, what? It's like, what the fuck?
Like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, I'm just asking you to watch your granddaughter for a little while. Don't go putting any of that shit in her head. He doesn't say that, but it's just kind of
Which
like,
is cool because immediately after that, we cut to the first session of The Wife with Dr.
Ragland, yeah.
And that's what I said. And he's imitating both and they're doing the same mirror therapy, and
Yeah.
he's imitating the mother and the father. I don't know which one comes first or not, but the mother is commented on with her, and that
yeah, it's right after
she
that.
has said all
scene,
these
yeah.
terrible things to her, and that the mother was a terrible
Well, yeah,
person.
he starts playing the role of Candy and asking, saying like, you hurt me, mommy, you hit me and you scratched me, and she's kind of like, no, I didn't do that. Mommies don't hurt their children.
It's sort of a roundabout way for him to interrogate her about the bruises on Candy's back.
Right, and sort of midway through it, he switches from playing Candy to playing the mother after he's gotten to her minutes, like, oh no, mommies do hurt their children, and she's like, yeah, some mommies are fucked up and bad, and he's like who? Like, which mommy? She's like my mommy, and then he, like, switches that role and, has that confrontation, and then we go back to the grandmother's house as she's going to refresh her drink for like the fourth time, and we get the first kill sequence where she's like on her way into the kitchen. She hears a bunch of stuff being smashed. Kind of looks like there's like a cat or like a possum or something like up on the counter.
I think I literally said like, yeah, because there's a shot of the kitchen and it's a low angle shot.
Yeah.
We can't see the counter. We can only see along the face of it and all the cupboards, and things just start getting thrown on the ground and down a chain. That's just a cat. There's a cat in the house.
Well, right before it, you see like a small but really wrinkled old hand burst through a tiny door.
Yeah, like a cupboard door,
Yeah,
like
a
punches
cupboard
out.
door,
Yeah,
and then just spill a bunch of milk and orange juice on the floor.
Well, she walks into the kitchen and she is attacked by a small figure in like a bright red little like snowsuit.
A jumper.
Little, yeah.
Yeah, they literally milked that scene for all it's worth.
That is the second week in a row you've done that. You gotta stop. You gotta come
Won't
up
be
with
the last.
You gotta come up with
Not if I
better
can help it.
jokes.
Whoa! Let's not get carried away here. All right, slow down.
The like small figure like beating her to death with it's like a meat tenderizer.
Yeah.
I think it's also partially the bright red that does this, but it reminds me a lot of Don't Look Now.
Yeah.
Which came several years before this, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, similarly, like, it's kind of a play on pacing, whereas, like, most of the film up until that point was very slow paced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that kill sequence is aggressive in, like, its pacing, and, like, it's a lot of quick cuts.
Yeah.
And a lot of, limited perspective. We only see part of them, or we only see their hands.
Yeah.
Or, particular elements.
It's frenetic.
It treats it like a sort of giallo
Yeah.
kill scene a little bit, but
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. This whole movie, with the 60s veneer, the tension, the regular murders, the heavy strings, reminds me of a fucking Hitchcock movie.
yeah, I can see that a little bit.
I get a lot of Hitchcock
I can
vibes.
see that a little bit. Cronenberg's got a very different directorial style than Hitchcock,
Yes.
but I see where you're coming from. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said though, Ben, like it is kind of campy because it's like what appears to be a child, like beating a woman to death with like a little hammer. And I think it's supposed to sort of be evocative of Candy as well, because like at the beginning of the movie we see her in the same kind of red jumper, and it's like you almost for like a second wonder like if it's her, but we see her in like the other room because she's looking through the old photographs of the grandmother, so we intuitively know that it can't be.
Yeah, well, and we get those close-up shots of the hands, and the hands are old and wrinkled looking.
And I like that when Candy goes into the kitchen and like sees her grandmother dead, and then she looks at the stairs, you get a little glimpse of like the figure's face, and it like grabs the railings of the staircase and leaves bloody handprints.
Yeah, I thought that shot itself was cool, and I will say like this first kill sequence does a really good job like obfuscating like the whole creature design, because like honestly I think one of my minor flaws with this movie is the actual kid makeup looks kind of janky and bad. It looks, you mentioned it in the opening in your name, but it looks like the I Think You Should Leave sketch where Tim Robinson is at the mall wearing too much stuff as a prank.
Yeah,
and he's
all
like,
the prosthetic
I got too
stuff.
much fucking shit on me.
I got too much fucking shit on me. I don't even want to be around right now.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Anymore.
The face stuff, especially.
It does, but
To me, it works.
I think it works too. I mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but yeah, I think it works too because it's supposed to be uncanny. Like they're supposed to look kind of like kids, but
it is kind of
not.
funny. But that sort of works for me. I could see it not, and I think that's equally valid.
I think what really makes it is that they all have the same like blonde straight across bangs. Yeah. That Candy does too.
Silly.
And that's like the goofiest thing, but also it kind of falls into that like uncanny thing where like the goofiness somehow makes it
worse again,
more sinister. The Anton Chigurh effect,
fucked up haircut.
Yeah, weird. Yeah,
the Fargo
effect. Yeah, a force of preternatural evil with a stupid haircut. I appreciate that kind of stuff, but I mean, yes, like this is a relatively low budget film. Like that stuff you could say is maybe kind of
and like I said, like they do a good job of shooting around it a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. It's just a couple times, like, where it is particularly egregious.
Where I will say it first, like on first viewing, it was. Before I knew the big reveal and the rest, it did feel kind of cheap. It's a little, the makeup is a little apparent, it's a little rubbery, which also probably makes sense because they were like putting makeup, like pretty extensive makeup on kids. That's got to be like that's a big ass. That's a pretty big challenge.
I don't think they were probably little
in some
people.
cases.
I don't think I would doubt that they were actually children.
I think it was both.
I think they were probably little people.
The makeup, it does feel a little leathery, and there's not a lot of articulation. But I think that kind of works for this, specifically because they are fucked up little replicants.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll always have a soft spot for movies where the villain or monster is like a weird little freak. There's always that part of me that longs for that longs for the weird little freak. Shit like Gremlins, shit like Basket Case, shit like Troll 2, like I love a weird nasty little guy, and this movie is full of them.
I will say it's jumping ahead just slightly, but like
that's okay.
I think
watch The Brood. Just watch it.
The example where like the creature design works best for me is like that autopsy scene. After the first one dies in the house, they take it to a medical.
The coroner,
exam.
yeah.
After it kills the grandpa, because after it kills, let's just get to that point. It kills the grandma. No one knows what happened. Then the grandpa shows up and he's trying to get back in. He can't into her life, and in the medical facility, he's also turned back. He gets very drunk. He goes back to the house where his ex-wife died, lamenting her passing, and then here comes the creature again.
Was hiding under the bed this entire time.
Just chilling. And it comes up, grabs 2 snow globy paperweights.
Labyrinth orbs.
Yeah, the labyrinth orbs. And it's very Hoggle-like. And then it beats it.
Bonks him to death with those.
Yeah, he's a big bonk.
And Frank shows up right after this and encounters the creature.
The creature throws one of the labyrinth balls through the wall.
Yeah, throws it.
I found really funny.
No, displaying its incredible strength.
I do like that they make sure to do that every now and then to show that like these little gremlin things are like stronger than I mean, they have to be, right, to be like a believable threat, because again they're like the stature of 5-year-olds, but multiple times we see them like punching through walls and shit. And, like you mentioned, throwing the orb through the just like clean through the wall.
It's cool too, like from a parental perspective. I mean, they don't have, but 5 years old is around the time where they get to that age where they're still pretty stupid, but they're getting big.
Oh yeah,
you know. And as a parent, I've had enough friends, you know, who are parents, you know, of children that age. I've seen that where it's like, oh man, they're getting to the point where they could start overpowering me if they get too much bigger, because I'm tired. I'm a parent, and like his parents are tired, and
no 5-year-old will ever overpower me.
But yeah, that idea of like having to deal with like a still like very large but still infantile, you know, creature is and I think this film displays that really well, where it's like, oh damn, you're getting powerful. Jesus, I gotta really step up my parenting.
I think you're really overselling the strength of your average 5-year-old, but I see where you're coming from, I suppose.
I'm a weak, pathetic gamer, Tease. All threats scare me.
But yes, while Frank is battling this weird little creature, it just kind of dies.
Yep. Yeah, it like falls to the floor and like starts wheezing and asphyxiating almost.
Yeah, and it just dies.
His neck gets all bulbous. You can see all the wrinkles.
And so they take it to. He goes to the police, of course, and they take it to the medical examiner, who breaks down like all of the weird, fucked up shit about it.
I will say that's where the creature design works for me, because it looks especially uncanny, especially
under that purple
the way
lighting.
It's shot with that like stark purple lighting.
What I like too is that fairly early on to that scene, as he's describing like the creature's abilities, what it can see, the rest, he does describe that it can't see color, or that it only sees in black and white, and the scene itself is shot, you know, monochromatic. It's just
purple,
the purple.
yeah.
So I think that's cool. Like, you know, it's sort of
and also like
a sense of like how they see the world.
It literally sees black and white, but also metaphorically sees. It can't be reasoned with. There's no nuance. There is either rage or neutrality. You know, it's all black and white. But yeah, the doctor gives us like the breakdown of like what is wrong with this thing. Like, doesn't have any teeth, but its gums are kind of like sharp, like a beak. Doesn't have a belly button, so it's not born traditionally. Like we said, it's got weird, fucked up eyes, so it can only see in black and white. But most notably, it has like a weird sac between its shoulder blades that the doctor describes as like
amniotic,
a nutrient sac, similar to like an egg yolk or something, or a camel's hump. And like when the nutrients are depleted from the sac, then it just dies. So that's why it sort of just like keeled over while it was attacking. Its gas tank ran dry. Is I think how the doctor describes it.
That point. And all the angles we see from, because when it goes to kill the grandpa, we see its face a little bit. And it's kind of fucked up, but like it still just looks like a weird, fucked up little child creature. And
kind of like a child with like the face of an old man, sort of. Yeah, like it's
Kira.
Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm. And but then when we see it on the autopsy table, like the puffy jumper has been removed, and it feels even more like alien. There, because it's like a Ken doll. Like it's you know, like fairly smooth. There's no genitalia or anything, no belly button, and it feels fake and plastic and artificial, and again reinforcing that note I made earlier, that like the fakeness of it, almost the cheapness of their replication is kind of creepy in this circumstance.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things where you laugh at it at first. Later on, we see two of them or whatever, and I see, oh, here comes the Lollipop Guild.
Yeah.
And it's...
Well, because they're all wearing different colored jumpers.
Yeah, they're wearing
so,
bright colored rainbow jumpers, and they've got their hammers, and it's just... It's funny to me. But
the scene later where they come for the teacher is pretty funny, because while Frank is out fighting the one after he finds Grandpa dead, like Candy's teacher is like babysitting for him, and while
she steps in to assume a motherly role.
Right, yes. And while she's there, the phone rings and she answers it, and Nola is on the other end and assumes, of course, that, they're having an affair.
Oh, I like how she says this. Oh, are you two having your own little private PTA meeting?
Yeah.
Like, I love her range.
Yeah.
She so quickly goes from docile and friendly and motherly to just bitter and knives out, angry and furious. It's excellent. Just
She's
so
crazy.
biting. Yeah.
But yeah, so then a day or two later, some more little goblin children show up to kill the teacher, because it seems awfully like whenever Nola is having a session with Dr. Raglan and is like expressing anger or rage against a specific person, be it her mother or her father or this teacher who she presumes to be having an affair with her husband, seems like just after that those people get murdered by goblin children. There must be some sort of connection, I wonder.
I have a question for y'all.
Yeah.
When Frank goes after the grandpa, and he leaves the teacher there, he leaves her with Raglan's book.
Yeah.
Which is literally called like Child of Rage or something like that.
Formed of Rage, isn't it?
Formed of Rage?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. What did y'all think about that? Because I almost feel like it's almost too direct.
I think it's just right. I think any more and it would be too much. It's coming up on it though. I agree. I liked it. I like about halfway into the movie, like I see the book cover and I'm like, I get it. Like you do get it before, but I think it's kind of cool foreshadowing, and like it's what he would title the book. And
and there's other things prior to that, that sort of hint at it, like we sort of alluded to at the beginning, seeing the Mike, that patient, like sort of express these lesions on his body, like during this session. And at one point Frank goes, while he's trying to like put together a case against Ragland, goes to talk to another former patient.
The Shape of Rage.
Yeah, The Shape of Rage.
Yeah.
Who believes that through his therapy sessions with Dr. Raglan, that he developed like lymphatic cancer. He's got like tumorous growths on his
it's great
on his
neck.
neck.
He's got a cover.
He's got like a scarf around his neck. Yeah.
And so throughout the scene, I want to break that down a little bit because I love that whole sequence. First off, it's the same actor who plays the weird, ambiguously accented shop owner in Existence.
He's a Cronenberg regular. He's also in Videodrome. He's in Scanners as well, I'm pretty sure. He pops up in a lot of Cronenberg stuff.
I love him. I think he's a great character actor. And
Robert A. Silverman.
Excellent, thank you. The father enters the room that this guy's staying in because he's been sent to talk to him as well, because he's also trying to form a case against Raglan because he was an ex-patient. And his room is really nasty. There's like newspapers and clutter all over the bed, and we don't see him at first, but we hear some weird sounds, and then in the mirror we can kind of see like he's on the floor rolling around, and he's doing like a weird rolling on the floor on a mat exercise to keep himself going. And he talks about the lymphatic system, and he's just off. And I love it. I love how weird he is, and kind of he's just like this weird fucked up dude. And we can see like it's affected him, but he's trying to come back around, and he's doing what he can to be like a normal person. And it's great. It's a really compelling scene. And I was just drawn to his character and like trying to figure out like, okay, how fucked up is this guy? Is he safe to be around? Yes. It seems like he's got the right intentions or whatever, but he's just kind of a weird guy, just like me. And right when we think he's kind of a normal guy, he then pulls down the scarf around his neck, and we see that his throat just has this fucked up, nasty growth on it. And you can see he's ashamed of it, and it's probably the primary reason he wants to call him out, to explain that, hey, this practice can cause cancer.
Well, yeah, he has a conversation with Frank. He's like, how do you prove that, that this treatment, like, gave you cancer? It's like, oh, well, you can't, of course. There's no way to prove that. But taking him to court over anything is revenge, because even if I lose, it's still bad press for Raglan. That he'll never be able to shake that tagline, psychoplasmics causes cancer or whatever. So there's lots of these things like leading up to this point in the film that like that is what is the weird unique thing about whatever psychoplasmics is. We never learn anything about what this science actually is. The only time we ever see it in practice is Oliver Reed in a karate gi pretending to be people's mommies and daddies, and through that is causing them to physically manifest signs of their rage or their trauma or whatever. And as it just so turns out, Nola is special. She's like the crown jewel of this practice because she is budding little cancerous children.
Shapes of rage.
Little shapes of rage that act based off of her mood. When she's angry, they kill. When she's mellow, they're docile,
I really love the cover of Shapes of Rage too, that it's a clenched fist with a mouth formed over it, like like the angry.
Yeah, it's like it's holding the hand is the hand
clenched.
is holding the open mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the ideas of psychoplasmics really play into like trendy psychiatry, pop psychiatry type of stuff, like parts work.
Yeah.
Where, you're talking about like different parts of your personality that kind of take control over.
Well, that shit was huge in the 70s, right? This movie came out only a year after, I think, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which also has, like, that's a huge part of that movie is like these famous pop psychologists. So, like, yeah, it really is something that's emblematic of that time, too.
Yeah, I think from the 50s into the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, Cronenberg is a therapy hater from the look of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, the therapist is probably on his wife's side. Right?
Yeah. They're always on the women's side.
They're always, yeah, that's right. The court and the therapist, they always favor the bitch wife.
Everybody loves her. They get to know her.
Yeah, I love when after Raglan realizes that he learns that the kindergarten teacher has been killed, and he has, I guess, been putting all of these pieces together himself. He knows about the brood, obviously, but he closes down his facility and sends all of the other patients home so he can just focus on Nola. And we get another scene with the cancer guy who has now taken in the dude from the beginning, who's like obviously real fucked up. And he sort of gives some exposition about what's going on out there, and mentions to Frank that there's the like disturbed kids that they're keeping in the woodshed or whatever. Because after the kindergarten teacher is dead, like, Candy disappears. And we see, I do love that shot of her with the two broodlings on either side walking down the snowy highway in Canada. But the reason I bring up the Mike guy is because I like the scene where he's like, come on, will you just be my daddy? My daddy left me, and then my surrogate daddy left me. I need a new daddy. Will you be my daddy, please? Please be my daddy.
Yeah. Well, it's so fucked up because, like, these people that are, like, prey for Raglan are clearly very broken people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And that's
you
what makes them more susceptible.
They're children. You know, they're adults, but they're in an infantile state.
Well, it seems like the little bit that we see, they all have fucking mommy and daddy issues, right? They all have childhood trauma. But yeah, like when he sends all those people home, it's like, yeah, he doesn't actually give a shit about helping these people. It's the furtherment of his career, and he only needs Nola. Like, she's the great success, so she's all that he needs to study because she's been popping out all of these little goblin freaks. But that leads us to the final confrontation of the film, because Frank goes out to the facility.
He's got to rescue his kid.
Yeah, he's got to go rescue his daughter. And you know, he has a sort of a standoff with Raglan outside the shed, where Raglan sort of explains what's going on. He's like, look, we have to, like, if I can help you get your daughter, but we have to do this my way. You need to go in and convince Nola that, like, you want to get back together and be like a happy family, because as long as she's chill, then the brood will be chill too. Like, they're up there in the attic, and that's where they've got Candy. It's like, if you can keep her calm, then I can just walk in, grab Candy, and walk out, and everything will be A-okay. But if she's agitated, then they'll be violent. So,
as long as she stays chill, she won't demand full custody of the child.
Yeah, right. And so then that sets up this kind of dual climax where we've got Frank, you know, trying to reason with Nola, and we get the famous shot of her opening up her robe and spreading it like butterfly wings. She's got this horrible external amniotic womb thing growing out of her stomach that, you know, she opens up and pulls out another little baby.
She bites into it and rips it open with her teeth like a feral animal. No, it's really vile, and it's incredibly well made.
Yeah, you know, great classic Cronenberg body horror practicals. Looks really fucking good,
and so well used too. Like, and I just, you know, this goes for all of Cronenberg's films, right? Like, and I'm starting to really get this now. Is that, like, just again his use of body horror is just so well befitting an incredibly well written plot, right? And like it wouldn't be as cool if it wasn't in service of such a great story and like such a cool. It's acting as such a neat allegory as well, and
yeah, I don't feel like
technically it's so well done. Like,
I don't feel like it's ever used for like shock value. Like it's it's grotesque and it's shocking, but it's always in service of story and character. And yeah, I feel like that's something he really understands. It's never just gross for the sake of being gross.
Like, which is amazing because he lives in infamy as like the body horror director.
Guy, yeah.
But it's not because his movies are just loaded down with body horror. It's because he knows how to use it. Like,
yeah.
And I think that's super cool because, again, going into learning about Cronenberg and starting with these movies, not knowing very much, I just kind of assumed, like, oh yeah, The Brood, it's going to have fucking ghouls in it left and right, and, you know, there'll be a big nest of all these creatures and whatnot. No, it's so much better than that. It's so much fucking tighter. And it's the same. And I think I said it during Videodrome as well, because I think if you go back and listen to that podcast, you probably hear me kind of coming up on that revelation, but not really being there yet. And I think this movie is where I've really come around, and I'm seeing that he knows just surgically how to use it. Much like Dead Ringers, he literally uses it surgically. Just in that one dream sequence.
He's the
Crimes
master.
of the Future is a great example of that recently.
Yes.
He's the master.
He is.
We didn't even mention that when she pulls the little baby out, she
there's more to
starts
say there,
she starts licking it,
well,
licking the blood off it like an animal, like a cat.
The whole thing feels very primal. Like, have you guys ever seen like footage of like a cow giving birth?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen cats give birth
Right.
when I was a kid.
Like,
our cats had kittens.
Or a baby elephant, for instance, will like kind of come out like still like in that kind of wretched sack.
Yeah.
Before it's torn open, and sometimes like the feral mothers will like rip open the sack, and then they'll start licking the blood off of the.
Yeah, they lick them clean, and then they eat the afterbirth and shit. Like, yeah, and this scene is she starts licking all the blood off of this horrible little baby monster. Meanwhile, upstairs, Dr. Raglan is trying to get Candy out of this room full of broodlings. You see how many of them there are, how much rage she has.
Matching pajama outfits.
Yeah, they're all in different colored like pajama onesies with like little hoods, and they've all got their straight across bangs poking out.
You like what's so cool is it's explained like literally like what's happening, but there's so many little elements that aren't, that you kind of just have to apply your own texture to. Like, for instance, I guess they're all there and she's taking care of them because she's learning how to like accept her anger and learn about it, or maybe to like give birth to her anger and get it away from her. And
they're her children. She has the maternal instinct. They're her brood.
Yeah.
And Raglan's keeping them because he's studying them. This is all his project.
I like to wonder if like it started from a good place. Like at first Raglan was like, yeah, if you give birth to the shape of your rage, you can let it go, and like then it's gone from you. But like no, she just keeps giving birth to rage
over and over again.
The process is fucked up.
And
also too that like they never say it, but they pretty heavily imply, like, because like these visions keep coming to her in dreams and whatnot, that she has like a psychic link with them.
Oh, I mean, they pretty much say it. I mean, they act based off of her will, right? Off of Raglan says consciously or subconsciously they act off of her motivations. That's why they go and kill the teacher and bring Candy back, because she's got that need to have her child. And I love that scene too when he walks in there, because initially, like, you don't see how many of them there are. We've kind of joked about like how many 5-year-olds can you take, because it's like the scene where they kill the teacher in the kindergarten is pretty fucking funny, because there's 2 of them and they literally have like toy hammers that like the kids are playing with,
and it works because there's like a really cool duality there where it's kind of funny. It's like, oh, it's just 2 of them with toy hammers like beating her to death,
and it's like they
but also like so much of that scene is framed with just shots of like shocked toddlers and how terrified they're like witnessing this death. And it's
they kill the teacher in front of her in front of her whole classroom.
So you're laughing, but pretty nervously.
But like, it is, I made the joke. It's like skills issue. It's like if you can get killed by 2 toddlers with toy hammers, then like that really is on you. But it's like in the scene where Dr. Raglan goes in there to like get Candy, it's like you can see that's sort of this long room that's like full of bunk beds, but the framing is focused enough on him and it's tight enough that you don't get like a great sense of it. And he gets down to the other end of the room and Candy is there sleeping, and there are like a couple of the broodlings like around her. But like as he's trying to pick her up, you just see like around the room like more and more of them like sitting up out of their beds, and there's like 20 of them.
Yeah, well, I love the fact that that's paired with like, it's just really brilliantly cross-cut with the emotional climax.
With what's happening downstairs,
what's going on downstairs. And so, like, when there's a lot of emotional highs and lows in that conversation.
Yep.
And you see the immediate reaction, or response, from the brood upstairs.
It's like as she's getting angrier and angrier, it's like as that's escalating, we see more and more of them sitting up. And like I said, I feel like I could take like 8, maybe 10 5-year-olds in a fight. I don't think I could take 20 of them.
No,
so it's like even at that point, and Raglan he does have a gun, and he's like shooting them, and they're like being
Squibs are
huge
incredible.
squibs,
Just
just
like
like
really dark, almost black blood.
yeah, blowing huge holes in these weird little goblin kids. But they eventually overwhelm him, like Dawn of the Dead, and beat him to death. And then like downstairs, like you said, we keep coming back to that, and Nola starts screaming. It's like, I would kill Candy before letting you take her from me. Like, I will kill her before I let her go with you. And it's like at that moment, it's like they all turn as one and look at Candy, who's at the other end of the room, and rush her, And then she's like, she manages to get out and lock the door, and she's trying to hold it closed, and all their little arms start punching through the thin plywood door.
I don't know what they did to get that like traumatized reaction out of her. Like I that shot where it's a really common trope in horror for someone to be on the other side of a locked door as it's being banged with their back up against it, looking scared.
Yeah.
It's a very common shot, but this one I found it really landed. Like, she looks earnestly terrified, and I wonder what do they do to scare that toddler?
Yeah, I feel like I wonder that
probably
too.
not much. I mean, they scare pretty easy, but
I wonder that too, because it feels like the only genuine
scaring toddlers a lot, but
the only genuine emotion we get out of that kid for that entire movie. I don't think that little girl's performance is like overall very good.
Well, I think it's sort of written to service that, because for the most part, for the majority of the movie, she's just silent and just doing 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, it's just a shell shock kind of thing.
Very
yeah.
rarely. So like when she is, it's a stilted child's performance, but also she is stilted and
yeah, she's
shut
supposed
in
to
and
be
traumatized.
traumatized. Yeah, I guess so.
So to me, it works.
But yeah, well, and as this is happening, it escalates to what you mentioned in that quote earlier, Ben, where it just ends with Frank strangling Nola to death, and as she dies, the brood dies, and then everything is a-okay.
Or is it?
Or is it?
Yeah, because he goes upstairs, gets his daughter, heads out on the road. To get her to a hospital, or just to get to safety, or wherever. Maybe just home to have a drink. And he's doing like 1,000-yard stare as he's driving back home, and so is she, sitting on the seat next to him. And then the camera slowly moves in on her arm, and there's 2 bumps,
2 little skin tags. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That almost kind of look like they sort of have faces, like there's like some discoloration on it that sort of like suggests like an eye and a mouth, kind of. I don't know if that's just me projecting that, or if that's intentional.
I like little pimples.
Yeah, I mean they look
cool.
like little skin tags, but like there's
that
I don't know.
70s grain
I
is
saw
kinda swimmy and-
I saw some faces in there. Yeah, and then the movie ends, and it's like, I mean, yeah, geez, when he goes up to get Candy, like you just see like how fucking traumatized she is. Like she's like hiding in the corner. It's like that kid's fucked up.
And that theme
for
is
life.
repeated throughout the movie, and that's the whole deal. Is like the father even says at one point, like, I'm worried, like even already at this age, I've like imprinted something on her, and that I've messed her up,
stuck in a cycle of childhood trauma.
Yeah, and you hear parents say that a lot, where it's like, damn, I really hope I don't just like fuck up my kid, accidentally, or however, because it's just I
always have the fear of becoming your parents,
right?
And yeah, those cycles of violence and trauma, everything is not so hunky dory at the end. A bleak ending to a bleak film about how much Cronenberg hates his ex-wife.
Very satisfying.
Yeah, very, very satisfying to just imagine himself strangling her to death, I guess. We didn't really mention it, but another great Howard Shore score in this movie.
Love the Shore score.
Yeah, as he scored pretty much all of Cronenberg's movies. You can always
almost
count
entirely
on
strings.
Yeah,
in this one.
You can always count on a good score in a Cronenberg movie, because he got the GOAT, Howard.
That
this is a really early Howard Shore score when you think about it, because he's been going at it since Cronenberg started. I don't know
since before that.
what he was doing before.
Shore did
this.
some westerns as well, I believe.
Really?
Never heard a Howard Shore score that I didn't like. Well, Cleve, do you want to slap a rating on this? You can do the honors.
I sure do. I was trying to find like any evidence of that.
Of what?
Howard Shore, how long he's been at it.
You just pull up his IMDb and 1978. This is his second film that he scored.
Yeah,
there you go. Okay, cool. So I was right.
This was his first partnership with Cronenberg.
First partnership with Cronenberg, and his second score. The first one was in 1978. I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses.
Never heard of
that.
And he did a TV series in 1970.
And then
he's a musical director of The Heart and Lorne Terrific Hour in 1970. How about that?
He was the musical director for SNL between 75 and 80.
yeah, I was just looking at his first score, that his first composer credit.
Yeah.
Because music directing is a little bit different.
He was the uncredited conductor for Tom Hanks's Big. That's crazy. Anyway, score. Speaking of scores, I'm going to put a score on this movie. I'm so torn because I don't know if I can give it like as high of a rating as, say, like, again, 'cause I see a lot of like themes paired between this and Possession, and or if I can give it as high of a rating as like some of like his other films, but I think maybe that's just golden apples and golden oranges. Cause this was a really fantastic film, and again, I'm going to be thinking about it for a while. You know, maybe I'll soften on it when I'm not so hot off of seeing it, but right now I'm feeling a 5. I'm going to go ahead and...
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is Cronenberg's best by any means, but it's certainly one of my favorites. I really love this movie. I'm going to give it a very strong 4.5 out of 5. It's not quite perfect for me. I think there is just a taste of that, like, real life bitterness and resentment is kind of feels bad, aside from everything else the movie does spectacularly. But yeah, definitely one of my fave Cronenberg's.
Move over, Kramer versus Kramer. Move over, Marriage Story. This is the divorce movie. You know, as someone who's seen all of Cronenberg's stuff, I think this is my favorite of Cronenberg's early era. I would say like pre-1980 era. I definitely prefer it over Shivers and Rabid and Fast Company and the original Crimes of the Future. That being said, it's still fairly low budget, and Cronenberg definitely grows into what he's known as today through his films of the 80s. Still an impressive outing. I'm going to give it a strong 4 out of 5.
All right. Well, that will give The Brood an average of 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, definitely. It's on Max, so if you're looking for someone to stream it and you haven't seen it before, I do think it's a somewhat lesser talked about Cronenberg, because yeah, I agree, he really hits his stride in the 80s with the run of like Videodrome through Dead Ringers. Yeah. I think is like truly the golden era, but like you see him working his way into that, and it's really strong. So yeah, I'm glad we finally got a chance to talk about this one. Thanks for picking it, Cleve.
Oh, happy to. I'll be picking more in the future, I'm sure.
Well, next week we're moving on to our first Patreon pick of 2024. This pick comes courtesy of our honorary pod boy, Sam, and we're going to be talking about Rec 2, the sequel to the classic Spanish found footage zombie movie. They made it not very long after the first one. Same directors. I have seen this one. It's not as good as the first one, but it's in. I think we'll have plenty to talk about. Okay. I think we'll have plenty to talk about for
Rec
sure.
2, Day of Reckoning.
Day of Reckoning. Yeah. So that'll be next week.
Rec 2, Requiem for a Dream.
All right. Let's do a sponsor.
Oh, yes, the sponsor. I forget sometimes.
The shelf won't let me forget.
The shelf clings and clamors, calling for a sponsor. This episode is brought to you by a very prestigious sponsor. I definitely don't think we could do this episode without them, and I think it's really important that we honor their noble name. This episode was brought to you by Dirt.
Holy shit, we got Dirt to sponsor this episode?
All of it.
Oh my god. Boys, we finally hit the fucking big time.
We hit the Dirt pot.
Dirt has finally sponsored our podcast. Wow, gee, we're just rolling in dirt.
You know, folks out there, they always said that Pod People podcast doesn't mean dirt. But now it means exactly dirt, motherfucker.
But now we're in the dirt.
We're
up
in
to
the soil.
We're up to our necks in dirt. What about
dirty podcast boys?
What about you, asshole?
Yeah, fucker.
You ain't got dirt like we got dirt. So buy Dirt, who are
Straight dirted.
sponsoring the podcast this week. Thank you, Dirt. All right, well, that'll do it for us this week. If you like the show and you like Dirt, then please don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening to this. Help us get into other people's algorithms and whatnot. You can also always support the Patreon or support the podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Micah, Mitchell, and Jans. Y'all are the best. Follow us at letterbox.com/podpeoplepod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. For my extracurricular recommendation this week, I'm going to shout out another Canadian artist. This is David Cronenberg. I've been digging into some of the new music from 2024 finally, and so far my highlight album is the new Departure Chandelier album. If you like Quebecois black metal about how Napoleon is the Antichrist, check out Departure Chandelier.
That sounds wild. Holy shit.
The new album is called Satan Soldier of Fortune, and it's really good. Yeah.
Since we're focusing on Canadians, I'll keep my shout out Canadian as well, and go watch all of the works of Nathan Fielder.
Oh God, yeah, man.
He's been on a run. Nathan For You is one of the greatest comedy shows of all time, followed by The Rehearsal, which is equally, if not more, impressive, followed by The Curse, which is maybe his most impressive work yet. Very strange and uncomfortable viewing. The Curse was a partnership with Benny Safdie.
We literally recommended it like 2 weeks ago.
Go watch his other shows.
It just ended though, and the finale was incredible. Yeah.
I want to shout out his entire oeuvre, even his early stuff. This hour has 22 minutes. Show he did on Canadian TV.
Shout out Nathan
Fielder.
Fielder.
That on YouTube.
Shout out Canadians.
This episode is almost over, so I'm gonna give my recommendation. Lastly, I'm gonna recommend a cute little indie game I just came across that has been has warmed my soul. It's a very sweet, very short, simple game with some really beautiful imagery in it called Assemble with Care. And I'd highly recommend it.
Is it Canadian?
Is it Canadian?
Oh, I don't know.
Boo! If it's not Canadian, then boo!
You play a character who goes from town to town repairing old objects. And while you do so, you meet people and you help repair their relationships as well.
That sounds cozy.
It's incredibly cozy. And the music is great. The art style is great. It's all kind of painterly and...
Can you repair David Cronenberg's relationship with his first wife?
I don't think anyone could.
I don't think there's any fixing that.
But no, and the actual mechanics of like repairing the little objects, it feels kind of like Lego, and it's just kind of perfect all the way around. I would highly recommend Assemble with Care.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and until next time, don't have kids.
will be history. And we